I ain't afraid no ghosts. All right.
I know that Ghostbuster.
Yeah? Nice.
I got it.
I got that reference. You did.
Just saying. I didn't get the other one, but I got that one.
Hey, guys!
Hi! Welcome to Ring of Fire. A very special spooky episode.
I don't know.
We didn't think of a spooky theme song. That works.
Yeah. It's more like scales than anything. Welcome to Ring of Fire, where we, me, Emmy, the birth wizard.
And I'm Alex Barr, and we forgot to write down our intro, so there is no intro today.
No, here, I can do it. I can do
Okay, let's hear it.
Welcome to Ring of Fire, where I'm Emmy, the birth wizard.
And I'm Alex Barr.
And we're here to talk about tough topics, where we remind you to breathe through it and get through difficult moments. Like Superstitions from Beyond the Birth Room.
That works. You did it. You brought it around.
I did it. We brought it in, guys. Like, it's all about improvising on the fly. If you guys are watching on one of our Instagram accounts right now, go ahead and join us over on Twitch, where we can actually interact with you. It is a free app, and if we make it to 50 subscribers, we can start to monetize this and become legit
Twitch streamers.
Yeah.
We also both have new hair.
We do have new hair. We're matchies.
We're matching.
Look at
us. Hard
us.
to see, but we are matching. We're very cute.
We're also very disappointed no one's said anything about how cute we are yet, so we have to bring it up. Please comment on how cute we look.
To be fair, I had lots of nice comments on my Instagram
Did you?
Today, and I was like, oh, everybody's so nice.
Because it looks like it grows out of your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just kind of go with whatever I got.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
whatever
gorgeous.
I feel like.
It's gorgeous. And it's so fall. I like the color you picked.
Yeah.
So we're talking about superstitions because it's the spoopy episode.
All right. We are going to start. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're cool. I was just going to say Alex did actual research. We're not just up here throwing shit against the wall.
So this is the important thing is that Emmy has lots of superstitions.
I would say a
good amount. Maybe not lots. I don't believe in superstitions necessarily.
Yeah.
So Emmy finally wanted us to disagree on something, and we found it.
I just think the longer... Okay, so I'm going to start it off with this, I feel a lot of birth work is, understanding intuition and listening to your gut and, getting into maybe something that feels a little wooey. And I tend to do very hospital births and, evidence-based stuff and, really into facts and science. But I have a lot of those superstitions and, I sit in my intuition a lot during birth, even with that setting. Yeah. So I think it's really easy to end up in it.
I definitely feel like I'm a little wooey and into my intuition. I just don't think maybe I put them as superstitions.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Mine are real loud.
Yeah.
So,
which is what happens.
Maybe that's what it is. You just haven't had one hit you yet. Yeah.
Maybe there will be. Oh, and that's what we're talking about before.
I just thought of 2 more. Fuck.
The list is getting longer.
Yeah. I started out with 7, and now we're up to 9. But continue.
We were talking about before we started recording about how the longer you do this, probably the more superstitions you have.
Yes.
The more things you see, the more patterns you see, and the more things that might stand out.
Yeah, and we need to recognize that our brains are really great at telling stories and making connections. So of course we're going to get more superstitious over time, and of course we're going to get into this stuff over time. So so we'll just one more reminder, come join us over on Twitch, where we can actually see your comments and stuff, because I think that one's oh shit, what happened? Okay, you guys are back.
It came back.
Come back. Come to Twitch.
I don't know why I did that.
It's cool. I'm sure we'll figure it out later or whatever. You guys should have just joined us on Twitch. Anyway, hey,
but if you are listening, please send your superstitions and we'll look over them at the end. All right, let's start.
Let's do it.
So I have a couple that I fact checked, and then a couple that I just thought were interesting that we're going to talk about. So first, we're going to talk about spicy foods aren't safe for babies. So myths suggest that spicy foods eaten during pregnancy can burn the baby's eyes, resulting in blindness. And spicy foods also have been blamed for miscarriages and the induction of labor.
Yes.
And someone said, when I looked into it, the answer is, while those associations might sound plausible, they aren't real.
So I cannot tell you how much shit I got with my first pregnancy. I worked with someone who believed that spicy food would cause a miscarriage or like preterm labor. And there I was every day with like Panda Express and like all the hotness on it. And she was like, that's going to cause problems. So I was like, I don't care. This is what my body said I needed, so we're gonna do it.
I mean, it might make your tummy hurt, like at the
Not-
most.
not
but
mine.
not yours.
Ironclad.
And
Yeah.
you know, you're not white, so that helps too.
There's that.
Just saying.
I think also it helped that I got to a place where everything gave me heartburn, so I started to get to that thing of like, fuck it, I'm just going to eat whatever I want. So
my grandma
the
also
safety
told me,
pin one. We'll have to write that down, Miss Sarah.
I don't know what that is. Yeah.
Neither do I.
We'll look through them at the end. Yeah. My grandma did tell me that if I ate spicy foods, my breast milk would be spicy, and I was like, I don't think that's how that works. It would literally be spicy. It, like, of course, you can pass things to the baby that might upset the baby's stomach, but it doesn't literally make it taste spicy.
I think it's interesting when people talk about this one. Again, you said it jokingly,
Yeah.
but there is a cultural base there, because
Yeah.
what do we think about women in like regions where all they eat is spice,
Everything's
right?
spicy. Yeah.
Like I think of my
They're
friends in
probably
Thailand where a ton of spices in their food, and like it's no big deal.
And everything's spicy to me, so I don't know. My husband will be like, "Oh, I put a lot of pepper in that, so be careful."
Yeah.
The next one was, can I raise my arms above my head?
This one was done to me.
Was it?
Yeah.
They told you not to put your hands above your head?
I was I worked retail, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've said this before. And I was doing like putting away go backs, and a older lady came up to me as I was like putting things away over my head, and she was like, "Oh my god, don't do that." Like stop dead in her tracks to be able to like help me with this thing I was doing so wrong. So I think I had not looked it up. I just thought she was being weird. Like, because a lot of people are weird to you when you're pregnant. So I was like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Just being weird. Like,
and it says that in certain cultures, superstition advises pregnant women to avoid stepping over ropes while pregnant as well.
My cat bit me.
Okay. Stepping over ropes and raising your arms around over your head can result in a nuchal cord. Which, if anybody doesn't know, the umbilical cord becomes tangled around the baby's necks. But there's no scientific basis for that. I thought that was interesting, and like literally I could not imagine how simply putting your arms up would be enough to...
Deja's here with us!
We have a first time chat from a viewer! We're so excited. Okay. But yeah, your movements have no effect on the umbilical cord. It's pretty common to have a nuchal cord. It's just, you know.
And from a midwife who hangs out with us quite a bit, she always likes to remind me at least that, you know, umbilical cords get wrapped up like jewelry. It's no big deal.
Yeah. So. It happens often, which so I thought it was an interesting thing. The next one I have is I just titled this Werewolf Babies because it's about the full moon.
Okay.
The big superstition is the notion that the frequency with which babies are born increases during a full moon.
Yeah.
Even some medical staff who work in labor and delivery wards will believe this one. Yeah. I know midwives who talk about this. Let's talk about it. I fully believe it, but there's no science behind it, but I still believe it. And it was talking about the thought is the gravitational pull of the moon is strong enough to shift ocean tides. It might also impact amniotic fluid. But I also have heard people talk about, like, if your cycle matched up to the moon cycle, then a natural end to a pregnancy may also be on a full moon or a new moon or something like that, which I've also heard people talk about. But it said that there's no science behind it, but
fucking shit. I call bullshit on them.
But they did say there is data suggesting that some weather changes, like barometric pressure changes with the weather systems, actually have some impact on labor, which is really like very realistic.
Yeah,
that would have that.
Any of us who have been here in Arizona and been through monsoon season, like, it's just like when you wash your car, like suddenly you're like, I'm gonna wash my car, everything's gonna be great, and then it rains, and you also have to drive to a birth.
Yeah. Like every time. Yeah. Why do you think people believe that about or why? I would say, why do you feel that the full moon brings babies?
Because it happens every time. Like every time, I'll like get the call at 2 a.m. I'll look up and be like, oh, it's a new moon, meaning there's no moon in the sky, or a full moon.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 times I get called. Yeah, obviously there's some in between where, like, you know, sometimes they have, like, this other thing going on or whatever. But I seem to notice it the most.
Well, and it just seems like if, like, all of these midwives, all of these doulas, all of these providers are like, yeah, and nurses and L&D, like, are like, full moons, wacky things happen, lots of babies happen.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's enough anecdotal evidence for me to believe that. Right. I also have worked in the service industry long enough to know that the crazies come out during full moons. So lots of things happen on full moons.
Yes.
Fully believe it. Werewolf babies.
Yes. I wonder if they're more hairy as well.
That would be funny.
Right. Like what's it called? Like the fur on babies sometimes that they're born with. Yeah. I wonder if full moon babies are more hairy. Hey guys, do you guys believe that? More furry babies? More furry babies.
Because the heartburn and hair thing,
yes,
is actually been proven to be true.
Yes,
that the more heartburn you have, likely that your baby will have a fuller head of hair.
And the one that makes me mad are the chicks who had no heartburn and they still have a full head of hair, baby. Because it's like, you don't get the no.
You get the cute baby with a full head of hair, but you didn't have to go through any heartburn.
I hate those. No, not okay.
Get out of here.
Your birthers should get off easy.
I also had the Aztecs believed if an expectant mother looked at the moon, the child she was carrying would develop a cleft palate. So in order to ward this off, they'd wear something metallic to deflect the moon's rays, which I thought was kind of cool.
No, that's interesting.
Yeah. And I have a couple at the end that are a lot about just like people's fear of losing their babies.
Right, yeah.
And losing infants, yeah.
That makes total sense because, I mean, some of these we do as almost like warnings for us. Like, even the full moon thing, I know for a fact for me, or full moon or new moon, if I'm on call, I go to bed a little bit earlier. Just because it's like, well, maybe, right? Like,
yeah.
Deja was telling us she had a ton of heartburn, but her baby was bald.
Oh no! So you had all the heartburn with no benefit, and that heartburn's awful. It's the worst thing.
Okay.
All right. This is my favorite one.
Okay.
You can't look at ugly things if you want a cute baby. This is my favorite thing. Okay. This talks about an old wives' tale that exists in several cultures. It suggests that when a pregnant woman looks at an unpleasant or ugly animal, her baby will take on a resemblance of that animal. Of course, I think it's funny that even in this article it said there is no evidence to support this idea. Duh. Like, okay. And then the second one said, call off the trip to the zoo. According to an older Turkish superstition, it's bad luck to look at bears, monkeys, and camels when pregnant, because apparently expecting parents should only seek out things of beauty to look at if they want to produce a beautiful offspring.
So, can I tell you a different one I've heard?
Yes, I would love it.
Because it's also about ugly babies, because, you know, we have a lot to worry about when we're pregnant, but I think there's nothing worse than birthing a baby and then you're like, oh, It's not cute, right? Like you almost are like,
My
no.
child looked like Dobby the elf when he came out. So, and I called him Dobby for like the first couple months of his life.
Oh no.
He's cute now, but I guess I shouldn't have looked at bears, monkeys, or camels.
Yeah, or Dobby the elf. Did you watch a lot of like Harry Potter?
I've watched a lot of Harry Potter in my life, but not particularly while I was pregnant.
There you go. The one I've heard is that beautiful babies are produced by really awesome sex. If you have an ugly baby, it's an indicator that your sex was like, meh.
Yeah.
And so that's very funny to think about, especially because we've all had that moment where your client is holding their baby and it's like, aren't they beautiful? And you have the immediate, like, uh-huh.
I'm still at the point that I just cry every time someone gives birth.
Oh.
Every time there's a first look, I'm crying in the corner.
Oh.
I can't get over it.
I cry at every birth, but yeah, I still am very judgmental about how ugly babies are.
And I think there's a radio show that I hear sometimes where people will send in pictures of their babies for these radio hosts to rate them and decide if they're ugly or not. Which I think is so funny because people are like, I need to know if my child's ugly. Like, I really need to know, and I know nobody will tell me, so we need to go.
The best nurse is the one who checked us out with our first.
Yeah.
And she came in as we were walking her, and she's like, wow, he's really alert. Like, he's going to be really smart. I was like, oh, I mean, Dad and I aren't too shabby, so I'm sure genetics played into that. She's like, yeah, he's super alert. He's really pretty. I'm like, you're just giving me all the compliments. You're just trying to butter me up before I leave. And she's like, I don't say compliments for no reason. Like, you can tell she was like, no.
Like, I see ugly babies all the time.
Right. Yeah. She's like, I don't always say compliments. Like, okay. Thank you for telling me mine.
That's so great.
What else are we looking at?
This one I thought was interesting. So, if an expectant parent didn't have, it says as if an expectant parent didn't have enough on their plate, it turns out you are also required to stay pleasant at all times. Using foul language can be seen as cursing your unborn baby. And if you cry and stress, it's predicted that you'll birth a baby who does the same. And part of that is like, I would say factual, that stress is not good for you or the baby.
Right.
I don't think it's necessarily a predictor that your baby's going to be cursed or whatever, but I could see where they're like, you should have less stress and we should be helping you and supporting you and having you relax instead of having you constantly fearing all of the terrible things that could happen.
Right.
So I feel like some of that's based in some factual, like, be less stressed, but you're not going to curse your baby.
But also, like, I think there's something to be said about, like, AFAB people are meant to be pleasant at all times, even if they're going through something horrific. So,
Emmy, I didn't even think about that. I did not even think about that.
So, you're not being a good enough vessel.
See, I was thinking that, man, I was really effing stressed out when I was pregnant because everybody was mean to me, and it would have been nice if someone was like, relax,
you're hurting the baby.
Well, that probably would have stressed me out more.
Right, yeah. That's all I hear in that. But that goes to show, like, my filter that I hear things, right?
Yeah.
I immediately hear, like, you're not allowed to be loud or abrasive. Yeah. Because that's really what they mean by foul language.
And that's true. And my mom even told me when she was in labor, she was in the military, and someone being like, you need to calm the F down, Private. You went through basic training. This isn't hard. You shouldn't be screaming, like, blah, blah, blah. Like, telling her she was making too much noise. She was whatever. And it just echoed mine where I was just cussing at the nurse the entire time until, you know. I
feel that cursing is a part of like, the process. Like, and I encourage moms to curse and birthers to curse because it also is a part of that release, right? Like, as soon as they start to curse, they stop caring about the person in the room and they're able to let go.
And how many times do you see people who don't let go?
Yeah.
And that causes longer labor and
Right,
other
exactly.
issues, because you can tell they're just holding on so tight and holding it all in and not releasing to it and surrendering to it.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm all for cussing out as many people as you can.
Oh, for sure.
I wasn't cussing out the nurse, but I was cussing the entire time.
Yeah. Yeah, but I cuss day to day, so I'm
It's just normal.
Poor example. What else we got?
Last ones that I have. I found a lot of stuff that was just very clearly about being afraid of losing your baby, of losing your pregnancy. So a lot of it was like things to protect you during pregnancy so that you didn't miscarry, and things to protect you after your baby is born so that you didn't lose your infant, essentially. So it talked about a Bulgarian superstition is that the gestation is to be kept a secret for as long as possible to avoid the pregnancy being jinxed.
Interesting.
In Russia, they talked about no one should take pictures of a baby until the baby is 1 month old. It's feared that someone could look at the baby with an evil eye and make the child ill. There was also another one about not letting babies look in mirrors.
Interesting.
Because it could curse them.
I mean, mirrors are traditionally like a portal for spirits, so that makes sense. Like, if you believe already that there are portals for spirit, keep babies who have innocent souls away from them.
Yeah.
So
it kind of tracks. Yeah.
Right.
And then it said that Jewish families used to avoid pre-baby rituals that are commonplace for some of us, like baby showers, early nursery setup, and no online discussion of potential baby names. Which I found that, I think it was an Indian superstition as well, to not name the baby or decide on the name of the baby until after they're born. And then, and that's the last one.
Yeah, I know
so
all the Jewish ones because it wasn't something I held to, but I understood after I went through my first pregnancy why that's a thing, and how I ended up very jealous because then there's like automatic boundaries around it.
My phone's not working.
There's automatic boundaries around it. Join us on Twitch. We're gonna turn that
off.
Turn
this off. My phone's dying.
We're gonna turn it off. Just join us on Twitch. So I was very jealous because they're not announcing their their nursery style, and then hearing shit over like, why is it Star Wars? Why is it this? Why is it like more traditional? Or that's a stupid name, or like whatever it may be. One of the superstitions I hold to when it comes to naming, though, because that's a whole different ballgame, in Jewish tradition, you don't name your children after someone who's living. Because it's essentially this thing of like, a name is connected to a soul or a person. And essentially what you're saying is like, thank you, I'm going to take that name and put it on them. That's so you're almost wishing ill will on them to be like, come on, die, so that way they can be your namesake. So my children are all named for someone, but it's done in a very sneaky way. So my son has the same middle name as like his dad and my husband's grandfather. My middle daughter is the same middle name as my sister, who essentially is a clone of my sister, like all the way through. So that's my fault. And then our youngest's middle name is Ruby. My grandfather passed away the year that I was pregnant with her, and his last name was Rubel. So like, I cheated the system, right? They're not directly named, but there's something like homage, right? So it's funny though, like, I forgot that that's also one that I did. All right, guys.
Well, and that's what's interesting about a lot of them being so tied to, just people being scared,
and harm,
things would happen, and do we want to look at some of the ones that people have shared
go for it
before we hear Emmy's? Because she has like 15 now. Aztecs thought an eclipse would bite the baby's face. So for protection, the mother carried something metallic, like a safety pin, close to the unborn child. Is that where like the safety pin and baby thing comes from?
I thought safety pins for the diapers.
There's no way that was safe. How many babies are getting poked by safety pins?
How many babies died of the early bottles. I mean, like,
because I have a safety pin tattoo because I think it's cool, and everybody asks me if it's about babies.
and you're
Every
like,
person, and, well, old people, and you know, and I have so many old women grab my arm and say, "What is this? And what does it mean? Do you just love babies?"
yes.
No. It's weird.
Right.
Don't get tattoos if you don't like talking to people. Like, that's not what we're talking about, but that's my little tip. If you don't want people to talk to you about talk to you ever, just don't get tattoos.
Don't get tattoos. Don't do fun hair. Don't do like a fun hair color. I figured that one out too.
Okay, and then this one says the red ribbon bracelet protects you from mal de ojo, evil eye, and bad vibes. This says, are all these superstitions based on past experiences when people didn't understand pregnancy or the biology of it?
Probably.
Example, she raises her arms above her head and
someone's baby
also
died.
starts to feel the pains of miscarriage.
Right.
So she tells all her friends to avoid raising their arms above their head.
It's very possible.
Yeah, I definitely think that's...
I mean, a lot of this is all, like, old... Like, everything you just read off was pretty old world, old religions, old people passing this along, right?
Yeah, who are like, we don't know why this happens, but...
Just trust me, my dude, don't look at camels. Like, my cousin looked at a camel, baby came out fugly.
Like a camel. Oh, and this says that the mom would wear the safety pin on her shirt on her belly.
So that's interesting that it's the Aztecs with that one, because I would not think that Aztecs would interact with safety pins.
Why?
Because it's pretty old times, right? Like, when the Spaniards came over, it was the 1500s.
I didn't even think about that.
Right?
Yeah.
Just a thought.
But maybe that's where the safety pin thing comes from.
More than likely,
or metallic something.
More than likely, the Aztecs had something metallic, and over time, with Mexican culture mingling and evolving, it's turned into safety pins.
That would make sense.
Because it was probably an easy thing for them to get a hold of.
Yeah.
Just trying to, like, logic my way through that one, because it doesn't make sense that a culture that started in the BCs ended up like...
I couldn't tell you when the Aztecs started. I just believe that stuff.
If I could
have access... I would need a timeline to show me exactly how long ago it was. Otherwise, I'm like...
Long time ago.
Could have been 20 years ago. I don't know. But I have a poor understanding of that stuff.
So to be fair, like, the Aztecs are still around. There's still people who are a part of the indigenous communities that filtered off of the Aztecs, and the language isn't dead. So that's one of those miscommunications. Anyway, yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
What does it say?
That it was adapted.
Oh, and it, like you said, it was adapted from something metallic to do safety pins. Right,
exactly. All right.
Now it's time for Emmy's Superstitions, which I'm very excited to hear.
Okay. So let's go with one that deals with, like, doula businessing and all of that. I have to have a good feeling about the partner, or else I know it's not going to be a good birth. So I often will not allow people to hire me unless I meet the partner.
And make sure you like them.
Yeah.
Have you ever said no to a client because of your partner?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because no.
And I will say, I don't know if that's a superstition. I think that's probably based in some fact that you're picking up on the energy or the personality of the partner that may not, you're like, this probably isn't going to be someone who's very supportive.
Yeah, and it has so much to do with, like, our jobs a lot of times is about, like, framework and all of this. And if I think you have a dud of a dude or a person next to you, which means I have to do extra work with your mindset, like, fuck that. Like, no thanks. Like, I'm sure you guys are lovely, and, like, they're just not my jam, right? Yeah. If I can't make them laugh while we're, like, on the call and they get really comfortable with me, like, no thanks.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because there's a lot of energy they bring into it, and, like, to me, if that child is half theirs, or even, like, they're, like, signed up to raise them, and they're, like, giving me the vibe that they're like a shitty person or like not interested, then what are you going to act like with me? And you're totes into this like pregnant person, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
No
Yeah,
thanks.
it could be bad.
Yeah.
And I personally haven't had any bad experiences with partners, but I have heard some interesting horror stories.
I had a partner. To be fair, there was some like culture things going on there, but I've had two really bad partner interactions. One was an individual. I'm pretty sure they grew up in the Amish community, so he had some very interesting ideas about what his role should be at the birth. And in particular, he made it clear from the beginning, I am to stay in the waiting room.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a woman's space.
Yeah.
And I'm not to be in it. And I, like, goes on and on about this, right? And this was me early on, and I was like, rad, whatever. Like, stay out of the way then.
Yeah.
Right? But he ended up, like, I got him into the room after baby was born, right? They're doing stitch up and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Turns out he meant what he said, but not told me the whole truth. It's because he was squeamish around blood. Dude almost passed out.
Yeah.
Just walking in, and he's like, "Oh my god, why didn't you say anything?"
You're like, I didn't
because
know
baby
you were
was
gonna
born.
Pass out.
Like,
yeah.
Like,
blood and guts are aplenty.
And then as soon as like. I did the postnatal meeting. He ended up making comments about if babies were on formula, they would turn trans. Anyway, it was just like really weird, like some of the stuff that was said afterwards. I'm like, I knew I had a weird feeling about you.
Yeah.
I should have said no because this is weird, right? And essentially, this whole thing of like, it was the first indicator to me of like trust your gut. Yeah. With the next person, I kind of got a weird sense off of him. We seemed to get along, and he seemed down. Mm-hmm. But I got like essentially, I got an aloofness from him. Like, yeah, I'm here, I'm doing the thing, but like, I'd
rather not be.
Right. Which, come to find out, he'd rather not be, because he left for 3 hours at one point during the birth. He just disappeared. He said he was going to go down to the canteen, and then he left.
Took 3 hours?
No, he left.
Oh my!
He goodness. Like legitimately left to go home, and like did not say anything to anyone.
Yeah.
So I called him about 2 hours after he had left to be like, hey, doctor's on their way up to talk about options, this kind of thing, because it was an induction, right? I need you back over. And he's like, okay, I can be there within the hour. It's like, where are you? Like, texting. And she's like, asking me, like, hey, can you let him know, like, come on, right, all of that. And he's like, yeah, so I went home to take a shower, and so my mom could feed me. And, like, your wife's in labor. She's at a 7, man. Like,
yeah. You're close to missing it. Yeah, yeah. I do try to be very compassionate with partners.
Oh, I have no patience for it.
Really? That's so interesting.
No.
I try to be very compassionate with it because I have already run into quite a few who, like, you can tell they're freaked. You can tell they're scared, that they're nervous, that they've probably heard all of the horror stories and all the horrible things that can happen to them. That's kind of how my husband was. He was just like, I was so afraid that something bad was going to happen. And you could see it on his face, and it wasn't helpful at all. And I wish I would have said, go sit in the waiting room or something. Right. Like, give me a break from that face that you're making.
Right.
But, you know, I hold some compassion for them because I'm like, and then I also understand that if you are not the one who's pregnant and you're not the one who's giving birth, you don't get it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And as much as I try to prepare their partners as well for the birth, they have no freaking clue. I think if you haven't done it, you have no idea. You literally have no freaking clue.
I think the superstition has everything to speak to my standards of what a partner should be at a birth. Mm-hmm. And also going to this thing of, and I say it constantly to people, just because you like a person does not mean they should be at your birth. Yeah. Like, just because your mom and you have a decent relationship does not mean you should invite them, because your mom might freak out of blood or like seeing you in pain or whatever. And a lot of these partners should stay the fuck home. They just should stay home. Like if you're going to bring like your Switch and you're going to sit in the corner and not do crap when your child's being born.
Yeah.
And mind you, the other thing that goes through my head is like, I'm speaking about cis couples in particular. She literally fucked you and made a baby, and the best you can bring is this. This is the best you can bring. Like, she's about to push out a whole ass human, and the best you can bring is like, I'm sorry this is happening to you. Oh no. Like,
Firefly Birth Services says, so my husband is a garbage at birth support. So would you still doula me?
Probably not.
She's like, and I would, because I get it. But I get what you're saying. Right. It's like, but I also am like, I also get where this person is coming from.
Like I'm even being hyperbolic right now.
And I know, but some people don't get it, and I'm understanding of that. That some people are going to need to sit in the corner and play switches, and very often asking your partner not to be there isn't an option for people. Like, people don't consider that as an option, right?
Right.
We're just now, like, I think getting culturally in because of COVID, like, not having mother-in-law there or even mother there, like grandmother, like that kind of stuff, where it's like maybe you're having less people that feel obligated, but I don't see a point where people are like, I think you're going to be garbage at support. So even though I love you and we're partners, you got to go. Right. I just don't see that happening. I
think it's probably from a place of to like, as much as I'm hired for the birther, I'm hired also for the partner. Yeah. And I think that makes it frustrating in those moments, especially when I'm like, hey bud, let me help you out. And then they're like, I don't know what to do.
And they're like, I don't want to
do that.
Now that I'm thinking about it, there was a partner that sighed every time his wife asked, or his girlfriend asked for a hip squeeze. And I was like,
right. And again,
but just work through it. It's okay.
It's just that, see, Deja gets it. She's like, she had a client that only wants her in the room. Right. So I think that might also come from, maybe if these birthers were warning me of like who their partners were, or being like, because I'm straight up with people. My husband's lovely. I love him dearly. He's on the spectrum. He doesn't get a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So he needs a little bit more of a firm hand of like, this is the expectation here, and he'll be like, got it. Right.
As long as you tell me, I'll do it.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. So I think that's also the issue, is a lot of times birthers aren't willing to be open about who their partner is, or have this idyllic idea of like, oh my god, they're going to be so supportive. It's like, girl, you can't get him to a childbirth class.
I remember telling my husband in childbirth class, I know you're going to want to make stupid fucking jokes. You're not going to do it. I know that's what you're going to want to do. Try to break the tension. Don't do it.
Right.
And to be fair, he didn't.
So but I do find that the births that I've been to with shitty partners, I've had to do so much more work. Her husband napped. I kept asking why my epidural failed, so it was so annoying. Oh my god. But I think it comes from a superstition. Like, it has a superstition thing, because I'm trying to listen to my gut, because I'm preemptively trying to stop myself from doing more work later.
Yeah. Or, even be in a bad situation, where in a bad, because it is hard to be a part of that. It is hard to witness that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And especially if someone's with someone who's not supportive, or someone's in the room who's not going to be helpful at getting the birther to like what they want, or what their goal is, or even to listen to what they need in the moment. Like, it's gonna, like you said, it's gonna make your job harder.
Exactly. So the next one is a bit of like a lucky charm, if you will. It's, so my very first birth, I went in like the typical birth doula thing. I went in a pair of leggings with a cute t-shirt, and I threw something over top so if it got cold, I could wear it. It was a flannel. It was the most traumatic birth I've ever been to. And the next birth I went to, I didn't even truly attend. It was virtual. So I was in whatever. It went well, but I didn't have any, like, I wasn't a part of those moments, right? Finally, the birth that went well for me, I was wearing this jumpsuit that I picked up for like $7 from Walmart, and I had bought it in all 4 colors.
Yeah.
And the birth was magical, and I was like, it was this what I was wearing, so I wear it at every birth I do.
Yeah.
And it's like turned into my uniform.
You get like birth wizard like vinyls on the back of it.
Right, yeah, because like, and like everyone makes fun of me, but the jumpers like fully cover your body. I never have to worry about like my pants coming down, shirt coming up. Yeah, there's pockets, so I can throw my phone in there. And if it gets messed up, I don't care. It was $7 at Walmart.
Yeah,
like 2 years ago. It's fine.
You should have bought like 12 to make sure that
honestly am on the hunt for the next like set of them, because like it's practical, but there's also like legitimately anytime they have been too dirty for me to wear because I just came off of 2 other births or whatever and I have to wear whatever, that birth always goes bad every time. Like I need to wear it with like my pink chucks and the jumpsuit, and I'm sure it's fine. Yeah. At St. Joe's, I always wear this mask that I got with boobs on it. Also, like this like strange good luck thing at this point. And it's also to humor anyone who walks into the room. Like they'll see the boob mask. Yeah. Right. They think it's funny. So, do you have anything like that? Like lucky pair of underwear kind of situation? No. Yeah.
But I did think of one superstition.
What is it?
I have actually more than I realized. But every time I'm on my way to either prenatal or birth, I listen to the same playlist.
Oh!
And it was actually the playlist that I put together when I was going to have birth, and I never listened to it. When I was going to give birth, and I never listened to it, and I listened to it every single time.
That's so funny.
It, like, kind of, like, clears my mind. When I made the playlist, it was all, like, stuff that I knew the words to, stuff that I would be able to completely focus on.
Yeah.
And it works.
Right.
Completely focused. I know all the words. It's a great playlist. I play it in births if the birther doesn't have a preference and we just need like some background music.
Ooh, you should like plug the Spotify list.
We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. I might keep it close.
Oh man,
maybe I'll share it
here.
But people can't judge me. That's the key. You can't judge me. If you're looking.
Here's the thing, you guys. If we get like, how many did we need again? On Twitch, we needed 50 on Twitch. So get us up to 50 and she'll share her list, right?
I'll probably share it. I say that like, no, I want to keep, but I'll probably share it.
Right. So I usually I'll Make a Man Out of You for the same reason, because I know the words, and it's also a song you can like yell to get out that like nerves.
Yes.
But that's not a superstition. That's more of like a ritual. I know.
I would say that's probably a ritual. And then, whenever someone's like, I think this is going to happen, or I think that labor is going to start, I always light a candle.
Oh.
Yeah.
Why?
It's kind of like just a thing that I've always done. Like,
interesting.
I'm going to, I don't know, send like that intention out.
Right.
That this is what's going to happen. It's going to be a good birth, that kind of stuff.
Right.
It's funny. So it's like if I said prayers, that's probably where I would say it, but I don't. So I like to have like something instead.
It's funny you say that, because I always get a feeling the day of that I'm going to attend a birth.
Mm-hmm.
Every time.
Yeah.
So it's funny that you like the candle. It's kind of a similar motif, right? One of my other ones is if someone goes past 41 and 3, in my experience, it's ended in a cesarean.
Yeah. So you, like you said, you mentally prepare yourself for that.
Yeah. If you go past 41 and 3, I mentally prepare myself for that client to end up being a cesarean.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a bummer. Because
how often do you think that happens? Or with you, how often has that happened?
I've had 4.
Mm-hmm.
So
decent amount.
Decent amount. It's starting to like rack up there. And like that's kind of a bummer to say, because like even then, like 41 and 3 is average for
Yeah.
spontaneous labor for first time pusher, right? Like the stat.
Yeah.
But
then I would also say that then there's probably other things that play as well.
Right.
Like, you know,
positionally.
positionally,
and every
or
time it's a positional thing.
is
every freaking
Yeah.
time. And these are people who like were religious with spinning babies and
Yeah.
religious with like chiropractor and acupuncture.
Mhm.
They're my people who like dove in and accepted all the things.
Yeah.
They're the ones 41 and 4. We like
Just
wake
rough.
up the next morning and
Yeah.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Because I'll count it until it's 6 a.m.
Yeah.
No, you're still 41 and 3. 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Right,
And then at 41 and 4, you're like, yeah, this is what's happening.
It's,
Do you also think that's just the proximity to 42 weeks that a provider is like, yeah?
it's that.
But if they were positional, then maybe not. But, you know, in
yeah,
general.
I mean, so with all of those, now I'm thinking about 3 of them were hospital births and 1 was a home birth.
Mhm.
The home birth was given like all the things of like sweeps and castor oil and the whole 9 yards, and it just nothing kicked her into gear.
Yeah.
And it ended up being that it wasn't realized that her baby was transverse. How? Right? And then the other 3, everything was chill with baby up until like labor, like induced labor had to start, and baby didn't tolerate it well.
Yeah.
So there's almost something like to be said about the body knowing that of like this kid is not going to do well if I start to squish on them.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that's like a personal thing, and I never like make them aware. Yeah. Right? Because I still am like, you know what, 41 and 3 is average, but you're not average.
Yeah.
You're not my average, right? Like we still can make this happen. Just like let go, let God, right? Like just do your thing. I want you today to like go to the Target and like get some groceries, act like today is any other day, and maybe it'll happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Usually. So.
And I always tell my clients to plan as much as they can after their due date.
Yeah.
I'm like, make every appointment you possibly can. Make every date, everything you possibly can.
Yeah. One of my other superstitions is, oh man, I had told you a bunch of them. This is one that I do. It's more of a ritual than superstition.
Mm-hmm.
I have a psychic vampire spray that I spray after every time I leave a hospital birth. And it's because I'm not just interacting with the care team and my client, meaning their provider and the client. I'm interacting with more than likely the billing person who came in and
the entire hospital,
the food and like the whole. So I like do a spray to get all of those.
What is your psychic vampire spray?
It's moon water with a couple of essential oils. There's a stone in it. Like
you make it yourself.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, we need to sell this. We need Emmy's next Birth Wizard's next venture is to sell psychic vampire spray, because I do the same thing, but it's like a sage spray,
right?
You know, because somebody told me once like that to do that after work, so that you're not bringing work home with you. And so now I do that whenever I leave a birth.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's the permission to let go.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. When I go home, I don't have to think about the birth anymore. I can just be home.
Yeah.
One of my other ones was full moons, which I confirmed with you that full moons are a thing. Like that's a thing.
I 100% buy that. I know there's no scientific evidence, but I wholeheartedly believe it.
Yeah, those are things for me. What was some of the others? Okay. I can tell. I've gotten really good at guessing when someone will go into labor of a margin of error of an hour at this point.
Which is awesome. Which I told you, one of my clients said that they had a doula previously that she would come to the house, and she said she could smell if you were about to come into labor.
Yeah, so that's another one is like I can tell now being at enough of them, my world goes really quiet right before a client hits transition.
Mm-hmm. Which is cool.
Yeah, and it literally, I've actually, at the beginning I used to confuse it with like passing out because I used to pass out a lot from like not being able to eat enough kind of thing. We won't get into that. But it felt very much the same way of like that tunneling inward. And so at first when I was at birth, I'm like, I'm going to go get myself a power bar. Like,
yeah, but it was right as everybody was going into transition.
Right. And it kept happening. I'm like, oh, well, maybe it's something else. That's right. Cool. Like, yeah. But it just allows me to hyper focus in more. Yeah. And one of my last big ones is that...
But I will pause. I wonder if that is, like, your... Like, that has to be something primal.
It's gotta be.
It's gotta be. Because, like, people talk about, like, when you're in, like, fight or flight mode, or when you were a hunter and gatherer, like, that, like, tunnel vision, almost, where you're solely focused on finding food, hunting, whatever. Like, that almost sounds like the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Sorry, your last one.
The last one is I actually really like it when my clients have their due dates within the range of them being their babies being birthed on a family member's birthday. Mm. Those tend to be really great births for me. Like somehow those have always ended up well, so I'll purposely take those on.
Yeah, that's cool. You'll like purposely be like, I want that one.
Right, because like, and that's totally superstitious, but like, if you believe a little bit in star signs and astrology and all of that, these are people I truly love, and that's their star signs. Yeah. So like, I want to welcome them here onto this like plane. Yeah, like, I want to make sure that they know there's a Gemini out here that thinks they're groovy. You know,
that's
like,
cute.
Yeah. So I've had a baby born within days of each of my kids' birthdays and my husband's birthday and my sister's birthday. Yeah. And I purposely will always take on those. Yeah. Like, it's like, yeah, me. And my husband thinks it's funny. He's like, you're setting yourself up for one day not being able to be at your kids' birthdays. And I'm like, but they never come on the birthdays. Yeah. It's almost like they know.
But you could also pick something not close to the birthday and you'd still go on the birthday.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. But like, they know. I swear they know that it's like the next day is when they come. Yeah. Right. So.
And I did have a client where their labor was long. It was days, and the baby didn't come until like 3 a.m. of like the day that they had lost a close friend. And it felt like very like the baby waited.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really freaky. Like, I remember just feeling very like, I'm still getting chills thinking about it, because like labor had started so many days before, and they had mentioned like, oh, this is a hard time for us. It's close to this time. Right. That this like anniversary, and baby came on that day. Aww. I was like, wow, that felt like very like meant to be almost.
Yeah, exactly. Those are some of my superstitions. I feel it's necessary to say out loud that superstitions are a way, again, that our brains are really great at making stories and collecting data and like trying to make reason out of reasonlessness.
Out of the chaos of the universe.
Right. And really, like, we could call it a different word for me, which is bias. Yeah. Like, I'm developing a bias for these certain things. And, like, I'm creating patterns that may not exist off of these things. Yeah. Right? And I want to make it clear, like, never am I going to be, like, telling someone if you don't have, like, this certain type of stuff or whatever, that thus, like, you're destined for doom or success.
If you don't see me in my jumpsuit, you're going to have to
Right, exactly. Right, like, no bones day, right? Yeah. Like, really, like, there's so much fucking chaos in birth and, like, so much chaos in our universe. Like, the thought that we even have some sort of grasp or understanding of it is, like, just crazy bananas. Yeah. So, I understand where I sit.
And someone told me that they considered ritual and superstition as like protection from the unknown, and I feel like that's like a very good, like, you are protecting yourself a little bit from the chaos, or even bracing yourself for it a little bit, like, oof, something, you know what I'm saying? It's almost like you're reacting to like all these endless possibilities that are going to happen in birth, you know?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, those are the superstitions around birth that I got. Yeah, I'm sure in a year when you talk to me, I'll have more.
I'm sure I'll have more.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah. Rituals and superstition, it's interesting because I didn't think I had any, and I guess I kind of do, but, you know, maybe as the longer I do it, the more I have. And then we talked about this before, the biases, you know, even after, like, you've been doing this for a few years, you know, like, what happens when you've been to hundreds of births, you know? And that just makes me think about biases that providers could have, or doulas who have been doing this for a long time, or nurses who have been doing this for a long time. Like, how quickly can those superstitions and those patterns like build up for people, and how does that affect like the way they do their job, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure there's a nurse out there who will never work a night shift on full moons. Like they're drawing straws, like shrink straws, like, to be able to.
Full moon.
Right. Who wants
Call
to shift? And everyone's like, nope.
Nope.
Well, I think that's a nice way to wrap this up, man.
Thanks for tuning into our spooky episode.
Thank you.
As spooky as we could be about birth.
Right? But I'm Emmy the Birth Wizard.
And I'm Alex Barr.
And we'll see you next time.
Yes. Tune in next Friday on Twitch at 7, or come watch our past episodes on YouTube.
Yeah, you guys should watch them. They're fun.